All right, welcome to part 2 of my episode 7 rewatch. Let's get into it. So, I have to talk about the text conversations that are, I'm pretty sure, in between clips 1 and 3. Like, they span that time. The show never addresses them properly, which is insane to me, but I think it's very important and I want to talk about them. I super don't love how the entire fucking chain reaction of people outing Mateo, and also David for being some kind of queer. They don't know he's trans yet, but they still know he's queer, and they still outed him for that. And no one in that entire chain reaction of people ever has like any negative consequences for it, and it's never like talked about in a negative light or even regarded as like a bad thing that they did. Okay, so just the rundown real quick. First, Sarah mentions it to Leonie way back when, and then Leonie, probably because she's a very protective, fiery person, she mentions it to Kiki impulsively, and then Kiki, of course, mentions it to the entire girl group chat, which includes herself, Hannah, Mia, Sam, and Amita. Then, Hannah and Mia on their own decide that it would be better for Mateo, for some reason, if they confirmed the rumor, because they already know that he's gay because of other unfortunate events. All the way back in season 1, they've known for a while, and they're like, well, we should just tell them so that it'll be better for him. Girl, what? So they do that. They're like, yeah, it's true. He is gay. We know. We've known for a while. And then, completely unprompted, Kiki then goes to tell Carlos. And that happens right before this clip. And then this clip is about Mateo opening up to the guys and finally coming out. And it kind of sucks that, like, Carlos already knew, pretty much. But then, after Mateo actually gets to say it for himself and tell the guys for himself, Carlos then goes and betrays my fucking trust because I love him so much, but he has to be a clown and report back to Kiki. We don't see this text conversation, but we see Kiki announcing to the girls that the rumor was true, Carlos told me. And apparently Carlos also mentioned that it's with David. Like, not just that, oh yeah, confirmed, Mateo's gay, he came out today. Also, he's been with David. So that just like happens and no one like really talks about it in the show, in any of the clips. Like, it's really just like a supplementary thing. Like, you see Carlos says in this clip that like Kiki mentioned it, and you see in the last clip that Kiki texts Mateo, fucking gay pride, whatever. Straight clownery bullshit. But you really don't know the extent of it if you don't see the text messages, because it's never mentioned in the clips, like, explicitly. And it's also, more importantly, it's not mentioned how fucked up it is. Like, the entire chain reaction of people who were just, like, gossiping about not only Mateo's sexuality, but also David's. And none of them have any negative consequences for it. So, I don't know why this is just swept under the rug. I have no idea, especially because being outed is a huge element of this story. For the next, like, 3 episodes, being outed is a huge fucking deal. Like, it is the crux, the fucking climax of David's arc. I think it would have been a really, really great lesson to have the girls and even Carlos out Mateo in a very like gossipy high school kind of way, just like through text messages. They don't think it's a big deal, and then kind of parallel that to David's really dramatic and traumatic outing in episode 8, which is a lot more direct and is usually what people think of when they think of someone being outed. They think of something really big. They think of like everyone looking at you. They think of it as being like an in-person thing. But it can also happen like how it happens with Mateo. And I think in a lot of cases that's how it happens. In this very like, oh, I didn't even know that was considered outing. Like people just talking about your sexuality like it's another piece of gossip, you know? And I think it would have been a great opportunity to educate the audience, if that's what they really wanted to do, was educate people about outing, which I feel like that was at least part of what they wanted to do. They should have taken it a step further and been like, yeah, David's outing, really bad. Mateo's outing, also bad. Don't do either one of them. You know, there should have been a conversation, there should have been a clip where the girls, or at least Hannah and Mia, go to Mateo and apologize. Like, after David is outed, they realize, oh fuck, we did a similar thing. And we thought it was okay because it wasn't as dramatic as David's and whatever. But it isn't. But they don't do that. They never make that parallel, they never make that connection. And it's really weird to me. It's kind of irresponsible as well. So that's another gripe I have with Druck. Last episode I talked so much about how there were so many wasted opportunities with Mateo's mental health. And I think this is another wasted opportunity with the outing storyline. I think this could have been a really great way to give it even more depth and to give it more layers. I think it could have been a really important conversation to show that, yes, there are very direct ways to out someone, but then there are also indirect, seemingly harmless ways to do it too. And both are harmful, and both fucking suck, and both are very unfair to the person who's being outed. But they don't do that, so great. Wanted to throw it out there, see what y'all think about it. Even though Druck drops it, a lot of people in the fandom don't, which is good. So, yeah, I'd love to see what y'all think about this and what you think they should have done with it. And the song, this song that they play references it. Like, the lyrics literally say, "Don't give a damn about the rumors, they have never bothered me." So the show is like referencing it, but they just don't do anything with it. It's weird. Anyway, going back to the lyrics, I want to think about some more that come a little bit later in the song. The song is called Red Wine by, I don't know how to say it. I don't, but by that person and Empress of. I'm so sorry. So the two chunks of lyrics that I think are important and should be highlighted are, "Don't give a damn about the rumors, they have never bothered me," but also, "Feeling like a loose leaf stuck on the tree, blowing in the wind, come help me be free." So the first chunk is definitely a very blatant reference to the text conversations and the fucking heterosexual bullshit. And that's the thing, like, Mia isn't even het. So why would she think this is okay? I don't know, whatever. Moving past that, I've talked about that enough. I want to talk about the other chunk of lyrics. And I really love them because I think that's a good way to describe how David makes Mateo feel. Before being with David and before kind of starting to take an active role in his life, he just felt stuck and trapped, like he was literally like stuck. And there was wind around him, but nothing could kind of shake him loose. Everything was just kind of like, oh, fuck. That's happening again. Great. But he never did anything. But now he feels so much more free and the most himself he's ever felt. He feels like he has more control and autonomy over his own life. And a lot of that is because of these feelings with David. I love how worried Carlos looks. And I really love the blocking of this entire scene. I want to talk about it before it plays out because I think it's important to notice throughout the conversation. But Jonas stays pretty much silent as Mateo talks. He's literally standing behind him as a support. He lets Mateo say everything, but he's also there right behind him, ready to jump in if Mateo needs, if Mateo gives him that signal. And he's not going to jump in unless Mateo gives him that signal. This is Mateo's moment. He still gets some semblance of autonomy here and getting to say what he wants to say, not only in apologizing, but also in coming out. Jonas gives him that room. So this clip is Mateo building bridges to the rest of the guys. For the guys, Mateo not only apologizes directly and with words, he also apologizes with actions as well, saying that, hey, I'll buy drinks for everyone, which I think is perfect. Once again, for the guys, it's curated specifically for them. So that is another bridge built, moving up in the world. I love all of the nonverbal communication between Jonas and Mateo. I wish the camera focused on it a little bit more, but also I like that they don't because it is very subtle and I like that it's subtle. I love that look that Jonas gives Mateo there. I think that look is Jonas saying, whatever you want to do, man, I'm here for you. Like, it's all good. I got you. I'm going to be right behind you the entire time. And he's still looking at him there. There's also like an element of shit, like I'm sorry this is happening to you. Like there's sympathy there as well. Not pity, but sympathy. I really love it. And Jonas stays silent. He just lets Mateo do it. He lets Mateo speak for himself, which I think is specifically really important for Mateo because of how silent he's been and how passive he's been. Speaking for himself is a really, really big deal. And Jonas completely lets him do that. Yeah, they also share like a bunch of laughs too throughout this conversation. There's so many little moments where Jonas and Mateo just look at each other and they're like, what the fuck? Like, these idiots. They're so dumb and I love them. Which is exactly how I feel about Carlos and Abdi. In the original, Isak really like stumbles through this. He's like very nervous about it and he says, yeah, maybe like I'm a little gay, like whatever. But Mateo says, yeah, that's what I think. That's what I believe. Mateo here is willing to be more upfront and direct about his sexuality, which Isak wasn't. And I think for the story that they want to tell with Mateo and David and showing a cis gay man being in a relationship with a trans man, I think that it is so important that Mateo says outright, yes, I'm gay. That's what I think. That is what I believe. And even in the next episode when he questions it a little bit, Hans is there to be like, fuck that. Like, you're fine. You're good. And I really love that. I think that's such an important change. And I think that they have built it up with little hints throughout the season, and even, honestly, in season 1, they built up Mateo kind of being predisposed to accept his sexuality a little bit quicker than some of the other Isaks. I've mentioned some of these little clues throughout the season. Like there's the one back in episode 1, clip 3, where Mateo jokes about giving Amira a blowjob. And then one that is a little bit more subtle is back in the Dancing Girls clip in episode 3, clip 2. Mateo is very quickly ready to just like be done with the conversation. He doesn't get defensive. He doesn't try to turn it back onto Jonas. He just kind of accepts pretty quickly that he was in the wrong and that he should shut up. And I think that is a part of Mateo's personality. He is, the passive one. But also I do think you could frame it in Mateo is more willing to accept that he is wrong, and he has more of a sense that he was actually wrong for saying some shit about the dancing teacher. Even though Mateo absolutely still experiences some internalized homophobia, and I don't think they really resolve that, I do think that even despite that, Mateo is still pretty willing and open about his sexuality. I think he knows it. I think it's more on the surface than a lot of the other Isaks. And then another example is all the way back in season 1, episode 2, when Jonas tells Mateo that he only knows gay songs. Mateo says, yeah, so? And I remember when I watched season 1 for the first time, I was floored by that. I was so floored. And it made me really excited to watch season 3 because I was like, wait, he is ready to accept the fact that he is gay. And I think all of these clues add up and contribute to this overarching idea that Mateo being with David doesn't make him any less of a gay man. So I really love how they like kind of sprinkled that in throughout not just this season, but also throughout the entire series. Yep, and he reiterates it even more. He is into men. I love that look that Mateo gives them as he's just kind of like shaking his head and looking in between them. There's fondness and like, what the? These idiots. Again, these idiots. But you can also see like a bit of relief and comfort in his expression there. Like, oh fuck, this went well. They don't give a shit. They're already on some other tangent. Like, we're good. And that's when he gives Jonas the signal for Jonas to kind of take over. Like, all right, Jonas, I said what I need to say. They're idiots. You can talk now. And in case we needed any more implicit communication between the two of them, you see, for a split second, you see when Jonas kind of distracts Carlos and Abdi by telling them to go fetch the ball, he nudges Mateo's arm and kind of winks at him. And I really love that. It's such a cute way to show, once again, that Jonas is fully ready to support Mateo in anything, and their bromance is the real love of this season. I mentioned before in the last part, and I'm going to keep mentioning in every single clip, that as Mateo builds one bridge, it opens up doors for other bridges. And I think by Mateo accepting his sexuality and saying it openly, I really think that this allows him to build his next bridge, which we're going to see is actually to himself. It lays that groundwork for him to be able to accept himself. By saying it out loud, he is more able to accept it within himself, which sounds so cliche, but it's true. And I can't believe I have to praise this. I cannot believe I have to praise this, but thank God they didn't use the F slur. Thank you. Thank you so much, Druck. And then to end this clip, we get a tracking shot with like this huge lens flare of Mateo playing ping pong with the guys. So here we see Mateo playing like real ping pong. I cannot believe this is something that I'm analyzing, but it is. It is, because we saw ping pong show up in episode 5 when Mateo and David were on their date, and it was a fantasy, and them playing fake ping pong played into that fantasy, and how it wasn't really real yet, and how they were still hiding things from the people around them. But now, Mateo is letting loose, and he's playing actual real ping pong with his friends, and he is in reality now. And he was definitely happy in both clips. I'm not saying that he wasn't happy with David when they were playing fake ping pong. He was. But I think this time that happiness can be accompanied by the knowledge that he is immersed in reality this time. He has taken an active role in finding his place in reality. I really do think that there's a connection between the fantasy and reality dichotomy and the action and passivity dichotomy. I think that they are connected. I think the more that Mateo becomes active, the more he immerses himself in reality, the more he gives a shit about reality, the more that he doesn't want a fantasy, the more that he just wants something real. I think he has connected passivity to lying to his friends and not being open with people. And that is part of the reason why at the end of this episode, he's denouncing the fantasy again. He's telling David, yo, stop sending me drawings. Like, I want to be with you. That's it. I love the transition from the last clip to this clip. Not only does the music help it transition really smoothly, but there's also like a pretty intense lens flare at the end of the last clip, and you can still see part of that lens flare in this one. There's just so much warmth. I mentioned this before, but every single clip, whether it's the coloring, like the things people are wearing, or just like symbols of warmth, like cooking and food, every clip has warmth in it. And every clip has a feeling of comfort and home. And you can see it here as well. I want to compare this spin to the spin from the beginning of episode 6, which is iconic. We love that spin. It's very different from this spin though, and I want to talk about how they're different and why they're different. So in episode 6, there was that really disorienting spin of Mateo in his room. It was the first scene of the episode. It starts with, you see like a downward shot of Mateo upside down, and you think that it's gonna spin so that we see him right side up. No, it doesn't. It spins on an angle so that at the end of the spin, we see his profile, like from the side. It's very strange, very disorienting. The setting is very dark. He's surrounded by a lot of darkness. His eyes are open and they look bleak and bland and broken. Everything about it is just eerie. He is in a horrible place. He is. And this is so different. The spin is a lot softer, I would say. It starts from a diagonal shot and then it spins very clearly and very directly to a right side up shot. It is way easier to follow and it ends with him being right side up. It doesn't end with a side profile, it doesn't end or start with him being upside down. It is all about things coming back into place. Finally. His eyes are closed. There is peace there. He looks peaceful. You can't really tell if he's like asleep or if he's just resting his eyes, but either way, there is a sense of comfort there. He also has headphones on, which has been established to be a comfort for him and a coping mechanism for him, which we know from the panic attack back in episode 3. He has 2 coping mechanisms. One is weed and the other is music. He goes to both during the panic attack scene. In episode 6, he only goes to one, and that's weed. And now here, he only goes to one, but it's the other one. It's the healthier one. It's music. And there's so much light on him and dancing around him. There is, of course, the absolutely beautiful and on the nose, but I don't care, rainbow symbolism. It's just so peaceful. I love that shot. I love the rainbow. I know it's on the nose, but it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. There's so much light and warmth around him. There's peace. There's like a little smile on his face. There is peace within himself. And that is the main difference between that spin in episode 6, the beginning of episode 6. But at this point in episode 7, we finally get that peace. We finally get that parallel. Things are finally coming together within himself. He has built a bunch of bridges so far. He's built one to Hans. He's started to build one to his mother and to David. He has built one with Amira. He has built one with Carlos and Abdi. And now he's building one with himself. He finally feels a little bit more at peace and a little bit more acceptance within himself. By building those bridges, all the bridges that he's built throughout this episode so far, I really think that that has helped facilitate this personal acceptance. And it's true, like whenever you do something good for other people and whenever you apologize to people and reconcile with them, you feel better about yourself. You just do. You feel better about who you are as a person. And I think it makes perfect sense that the same thing would happen to Mateo. He's so much more willing to be kind to himself because he has improved his relationships with everyone else. This clip really feels like a reset. It feels like a rebirth because it directly parallels the beginning of episode 6. We finally get closure on Mateo. I don't think it's enough, once again, because they don't give us closure for the mental health issues, but it is something. It is showing that not only is he cleaning up his other relationships, he's cleaning up his relationship to himself as well. And he does that by literally cleaning up his external environment. He has fixed a little bit of the internal stuff purely by just, fixing his relationships and doing better with other people. And he realizes now that there is a huge dissonance between his internal environment and his external environment. So he goes to clean it up. And it is self-care at its finest, y'all. Oh man, I might have to clean my room after this. I have to talk about the song. I have to. It's Billie. Druck loves Billie Eilish. This is the first Billie Eilish song in this season. They really jam-packed the last couple of episodes of Billie Eilish songs because they had to get them in. They just had to. It's Druck. And this is When I Was Older. Love this song. It's definitely one of my favorite songs by her. So the lyrics that I want to focus on are the lyrics that play right at the beginning when there's nothing else to focus on besides the stillness and the peacefulness of Mateo just like sitting with his headphones. So I think you're really supposed to hear these lyrics. When I was older, I was a sailor on an open sea, but now I'm underwater and my skin is paler than it should ever be. So this song is inspired by Roma, and I've never seen it, but I do know that these lyrics specifically are referencing a child in the movie who can remember his past lives, and because of that like power, he remembers that in one of those lives he drowned. And I don't think it's a coincidence with those lyrics that this clip is called Emerge. I think if we're kind of trying to draw a parallel between that child with the past lives and him drowning to Mateo, I think we could say that through this clip and through Mateo building a bridge to himself and being kinder to himself, he is walking out of all of those past lives. He is recognizing them and remembering them, remembering that he used to be passive as hell, and remembering that he used to have really bad coping mechanisms. And he is actively walking out of them. He is actively separating himself from that person that he used to be. If we really want to like make a direct reference to the lyrics and the child in the movie, those versions of Mateo have drowned, and this one, this new one, is emerging. I love that metaphor so much. I feel like I could write an entire dissertation on this clip. I really could, because it works so well. When he opens his eyes, he literally sees things in a new light. He sees the destruction around him. He sees what his past self has done, and he makes an effort to clean that shit up. He notices the destruction for once, and because of all of the bridges that he's built throughout this episode, which has given him confidence and strength and motivation, he's actually going to finally clean it up. He is becoming a new, better person, a more active person, someone who has a place in reality, one that they have carved out for themselves. I love it. I also love how this song is edited. They cut it so that right when Mateo gets up and starts doing work, the beat comes in and it gets like a lot more energetic. Because in the beginning it starts out, it sounds kind of like a lullaby, it's kind of haunting, but mostly just peaceful and still and quiet. But then as soon as he starts being active, that beat comes in and you know, he's not gonna just sit there anymore. I really like how as he's cleaning up, he finds a joint, but he doesn't light it. He literally puts it between his lips and then he puts it over his ear, but he does not light it. Beautiful. Augustus Waters who? And then they cut the song again so that when Mateo starts hugging the pillow and gets reminded of David, the song goes back to that very soft lullaby state, and then it just kind of fades, and then we're left in silence. And we're left with Mateo just letting himself feel it, letting himself feel all of those good moments. In the beginning of this episode, we saw him like death staring the drawing on the wall. Close to tears, he was confused and he was angry, and there were all of these like conflicting emotions, and he was thinking about the good times, but they were tainted by the bad times. But now Mateo is just like, he wants to be completely immersed in this memory with David, and the bad shit doesn't get through. You can see on his face, he's not thinking about the bad stuff. He has that really small little smile on his face, and it really is just peace. It is. He's not letting that beautiful memory with David be tainted by the bad things. And I think that's such a nice way to show Mateo's mental health kind of getting cleaned up a little bit. Being more at peace with his sexuality has reserved some of his energy to be able to clean up, which further gives him the strength and the confidence and the state of mind to just be able to remember that good moment and just kind of sink into it a little bit. without feeling betrayed and without feeling rejected. And there's also like so much light streaming in still. I think that's a theme, once again, throughout this entire episode, is how much light and warmth there is. And you can still see that here. That's all I'm going to say for this part. We're going to finish it up in the next part. I'll see you then.